Hey there, positive managers. Welcome to Phase 2, Module 1, Effective Feedback. But first, I want to say, whoop, whoop! Congratulations. Really great work so far. You've completed your expectations blueprint, and that's huge. Your expectations document is the foundation from which you'll manage your employees' performance, and you'll really understand just how much this work will impact your world very soon. In this module, I'll really be clarifying how to give positive yet constructive feedback because it's one of the most tried and true aspects of positively managing performance. Even though research makes it clear that employees value feedback, coaching, and career development among most other job aspects, many managers of people don't see these as critical to their role. In addition to not believing they have the time, many also lack the skill. Yet 70% of employee learning and development happens on the job rather than through formal training programs. If managers of people aren't supportive and actively involved, employee growth is stunted. So is engagement and retention. It's commonly understood that when feedback is included as part of a regular, ongoing performance discussion throughout the year, the employee, the manager, and the organization are all better off. Therefore, if you're going to positively manage performance, your employees must have clear, tangible, and timely behavioral feedback on what they need to do more of or less of to be successful, or even what they need to start or stop doing. Lucky for you, you've already done this work and have your must and must not lists in your blueprints ready to go. The following steps are what you use to prepare for each feedback conversation you intend to have with an employee. You'll be using this process before each of your one-on-one meetings. And don't forget to refer to my Manager Toolkit. There's an entire section on feedback. Step 1. Make sure you're giving feedback when the issue comes up. There's nothing worse than sitting in a meeting and hearing a laundry list of past transgressions extending back into time. If something happens and you don't address it on the spot, the message to the employee is that that behavior was okay. When they hear 3 months later that it wasn't, why should you be surprised if they have a negative reaction? The longer you let things go, the more negatively the employee will react. Plus, the longer you let things go, the more you as the manager will stew about them, increasing the odds that when you do deliver the feedback, you won't be able to do it in a neutral manner. Step 2, prepare, prepare, prepare. You need to start a feedback session centered, prepared, and organized. The absolute worst thing you can do is wing it. You need to have all your ducks in a row. Do your homework. If you have documents, organize and review them. Your assessments must be grounded in observations, data, and concrete examples. Set the conversation in an appropriate place. If your office isn't private, schedule a private conference room. If your office can be made private, be sure that you've blocked out the time on your calendar. Invest the time necessary to prepare to deliver the information. Your preparation won't stop the employee from reacting negatively, but it will certainly help you respond more calmly and effectively when the emotions arise. Look for more tips on dealing with emotional responses later in this program, where you'll be provided with tools to use as well. Step 3. It's important to never lose sight of something that studies have clearly determined is true. If you focus on an employee's weaknesses and give them time, attention, and training to develop those weaknesses, in 90% of the cases, at best, you'll develop one or more of those weaknesses into mediocre skills. But if you focus on the employee's strengths and make sure that they have the same time, attention, and training, you'll help that employee supercharge those strengths and increase performance by up to 36%. And 9 times out of 10, a person has a strength because they love doing that particular thing. Research by Gallup found that managers who received strength-based feedback showed a 12.5% greater level of productivity, and their business units showed 8.9% greater profitability. Conversely, emphasizing weaknesses is a performance killer, decreasing performance by up to 27%. Which result do you think will add the most value to your organization? So in step 3 of our feedback process, you need to decide whether you want to proceed with a strength-based filter on, one that addresses weaknesses, or both. Keep in mind that you can create a team that complements each other's strengths, so that one person's weakness is covered by another team member's strength. That's where you, as a manager, give your organization the most value. If you're lucky enough to be able to hire someone for your team, be sure to hire that person based on their strengths as well as any weakness deficits within your team. That way, your team is covering all your needs from a position of strength. However, if we should be focusing on strengths, should we simply ignore weaknesses? I believe there still is a place for discussing weaknesses, but this should not become the center of attention in performance and feedback discussions, as is too often the case. Where the employee is underperforming, clearly weaknesses will need to be discussed. However, it's important to be realistic about how far a weakness can be overcome. There are some things that people will simply never be good at, no matter how hard they try. So asking them to improve in these areas is likely to be a fruitless exercise and highly demotivating. Instead, in cases of underperformance, managers should think about whether the employee's role could be restructured to make better use of their strengths and to reallocate work to other better suited team members where possible. Step 4. The best feedback is given to help an employee be more successful and make a greater contribution to the organization. Before giving the feedback, your next step is to clarify your purpose. Ask yourself why you're giving the feedback. Is it to encourage continued performance, improve performance, correct performance, develop a new skill? Research suggests that the balance of positive praise to constructive feedback should be around 3-to-1. So, define as clearly as possible what the employee will gain by listening to your feedback. Write down a few of those reasons. For example, a statement like, "I need to share this with you because I want you to be successful here." It's rare to find an employee who doesn't want to be successful, and receiving ongoing feedback is critical for them. Step 5. Eliminate judgment. One reason giving feedback is tough is because we often don't give feedback. We make judgments. And we don't even realize that we've made a judgment when we're trying to provide helpful feedback. Judgments can be negative or positive. Here are a few examples. Judgment. You didn't prepare enough for that presentation. Feedback. There were details and statistics that were not included in your presentation, for example. Judgment. You're not carrying your weight on the team. Feedback. You have completed 3 case files this week. Your peers are completing an average of 6 case files per week. The standard is 5 files per week. Let's talk about how we can help you increase your numbers. Judgment. You did a great job today with the Jones complaint. Feedback. Your ideas for solving the Jones complaint were innovative and effective. You gave the customer several options, all of which were appropriate given the situation. It's human nature to form opinions, and you've been forming opinions about your direct reports since the minute you met. It can be tough to remain focused on the evidence and withhold judgment. Yet facts and evidence will always be more influential and positive when helping the employee see the impact of their behavior. If your goal is to mold and improve employee performance, leaving your judgments out of the conversation will help employees focus on their own behaviors rather than on what you think of them. Step 6. Take into consideration the employee's developmental stage. Are they a new hire or new to a task? moderately experienced, or a high performer. The less developed an employee is, the more frequently feedback is needed. Step 7. Tailor the message. Some people need lots of details and 1 to 2 examples. Others want a 1-sentence statement of the issue. Some want time to think about feedback before responding. Others want to sit down and work through the issue on the spot. A highly experienced employee may need a challenge and respond best to something like, "That was a great result. Your step-by-step process on how to give feedback rather than presenting judgments was clear and understandable. I'd like you to consider developing a quick take training to share with other managers." Step 8. Prepare your own state of mind. Let's face it, no one likes to receive negative feedback. Think back to a time that you received negative information. How did it make you feel? It's important to prepare your own state of mind, not only to give the feedback, but to be empathetic about your employee's receipt of your feedback. Step 9. When the meeting starts, indicate to the employee that they have your undivided and uninterrupted attention. One way to do this is to actually turn off your phone or the ringer on your phone in front of them. The goal here is to diffuse the anticipated emotional reaction on the part of the employee so that you can both productively give and receive the feedback together and come up with ideas and actions to ensure the success. Step 10. Present what you experienced. Be as specific as you can in describing what you observed or the results of what you observed with your own eyes. Describe the impact of the individual's behavior. For example, you can say, "When you're late, others have to cover your phone," instead of, "Being late is inconsiderate." Another example might be, "I saw your presentation yesterday and I thought your facilitation skills were excellent. You were prepared, focused, engaging, and able to answer participants' questions." Step 11. Focus on the actions and behaviors, not the person. To reduce negative reactions, you need to use precise language with sufficient examples to support the feedback. Poorly crafted and delivered messages can trigger feelings of self-doubt, anger, shock, or resistance. Here's an actual graphic I created and used anytime I was going to have a difficult conversation with someone. I'd have it on the table where we were going to meet so that it was the first thing they saw. I even brought it to a whistleblowing meeting when I finally decided to report what I saw as my department director's unethical and illegal activities to the organization. I knew my boss, who was at the meeting, would try to turn my formal complaint into something that was about me not liking or respecting her, so I actually led with this graphic. Step 12, and this is a universal rule when it comes to dealing with people. Never start a question with why. Why is an accusation. It immediately puts the other person on the defensive. The best way to start a question is either with how or what. Those open-ended starts will be less likely to put the employee on the defensive and will get them talking a lot easier. How works especially well anytime you're presented with something that's a problem for you. For example, ask, "How do you see me accomplishing that?" in a neutral tone. It helps the other person see the bigger picture, and their explanation may even give you information you can use to help craft a solution. Another example is, "What led you to choose that particular approach?" instead of, "Why did you do it that way?" Step 13. Clearly present what you need. Define what you want. What's your desired outcome? Be specific. And be sure to talk through alternative solutions. Your employee needs to hear the message as kindly and empathetically as possible, but the message is the message. And it's important to remember that a difficult message doesn't have to come wrapped in a hard voice or tone. Make sure you deliver it thoughtfully and considerately. Step 14. Once you've presented your information and position, allow your direct report to vent his or her feelings about the feedback. You need to allow them to bleed off some of their emotional response. But don't let that venting go on for more than a minute or two. Make the employee feel respected by allowing him or her to share their reactions and emotions with you, but in a constructive way. I'll have more on this in our module on addressing employees' emotional responses to feedback. Step 15. Together, agree on a plan of action. In the end, this may mean setting a second meeting, allowing the employee to regroup and process the information. Addressing the emotional reaction shouldn't shortchange the other parts of an effective feedback conversation, including naming the issue clearly, offering examples, listening and hearing the other person out, and coming to a shared agreement on the next steps and actions. Step 16. This process doesn't end with the meeting. Be sure to follow up on any action steps agreed upon. Circle back periodically in your one-on-ones if necessary. And by all means, celebrate successes, progress, and achievement. Your employees need to know on a regular basis that there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. It's important for all organizations to create a high-performance culture where regular performance feedback discussions are the norm. And now you know how to do that. So, starting today, you can be significantly more effective as a manager of people and enjoy your job more by engaging in regular feedback and coaching conversations with your direct reports. But feedback is only one part of that equation. Coaching is the second important skill you need to master, and we'll tackle it next week.